but by, after you have been properly informed, so that you know, okay, this country may work for me, this country may not work for me, this choice of course may work for me, this choice of course may not work for me, this mode of study may work for me, this mode of study may not work for me. All these things are very important, so please take them to heart. And now let's look at the types of programs. People can travel using different kinds of programs. They can have exchange programs. Exchange programs means that if you are in a particular university in Nigeria or Ghana or Cameroon, and they have partnership with another university, maybe in the US, in the United Kingdom, in the European Union countries, then you can choose to exchange. So some people will go from that university in our African setting to this other in the Western world, and that can also be navigated. You can also do direct enrollment, which is what a lot of people do, especially from African countries, where, because not all universities have partnerships with these universities in terms of exchange program, but some who even have exchange programs, they may have limits as to the number of students they can exchange. So some may say we can only exchange 3 students. So you can imagine just 3 students in a university of about 20,000. So that is why most people don't wait for just exchange program. They just want to go through the process themselves. And that is why they consider the direct enrollment. Some have summer programs where all they want is, they are happy with what they are doing back home, but they just want a kind of international exposure to that. And then they choose to look for programs they can do during summer, which most of the time will fall between June and maybe August. And then they just go for the 3 months, get that international exposure, improve their CV, improve their skills, and then go back home. Some use it as a stepping stone. I need to say that. A stepping stone in the sense that if I had a summer program in a particular university and I have done very well, I've already put my footprint sort of in that university. So when I now want to do like a master's program or so, then it's easy one way or the other, because you have been there before, you understand their culture, you have been able to pass some of the things they wanted you to do, you have good record, and they can use it as a kind of stepping stone, as I said. The same thing with if you do exchange programs. And there is you have not even started, from the international level. This is possible. That what there are actually different ways to approach this, and all you need to do, first of all, put your thoughts and then purpose and all the things I said earlier together, and then use it to decide which approach you really want to use. Now let us assume that you have some of this information. You now need to analyze all those things that I have said earlier to decide on how to choose the right program for you. Academic alignment is important. Accreditation, location, duration, budget. In other words, even if you have that aspiration that, okay, I want to do a master's by research, for instance, program, then you need to ask yourself, how does it align with what I have done before? And when I started, I said some of those things I said earlier, they are very, very crucial, because they actually determine which country you start looking into. And I'll give you an example. If you are going to some parts of the Western world, the visa application process may be a bit daunting, and you feel like, and especially because of us from Nigeria, once some people join your name, we don't hear that you're in Nigeria, they are already on their toes, they already believe the worst of you, and all that. It happens, I must tell you that. It happens a lot. Some places, once you show them the Nigerian passport, it's like, you are like a suspect, so to say. But if you have been able to navigate some other countries and you have lived there with no crime or anything, it's now easier to look at some other countries. And I'll give another example. I had a student who had to go through one of the very less popular European Union country because that is what he could afford. I did the process. He got into that country. He spent 2 years there, spent his 2 years very well, no crime, finished his study and everything. Today, this person is in the United States. Meanwhile, the counterpart who applied from Nigeria at the same time he did, they didn't give him the visa. So you can understand what I'm saying about not disregarding some of these other countries, especially if you look at them, you look at the cost and you feel like this is something that I can start with. Let me get out of the Nigerian soil, and move from there. Now we have looked at study locations and all that, and I've said so much about budgets and all that. And I know that for most Nigerian clients, they are always eager to ask me about scholarships, where will I get scholarships and all that. And I always tell them, and I will tell you today, there are hundreds of scholarships, hundreds of thousands of scholarships out there. There are hundreds of thousands of scholarships out there, and that is the truth. But certain things help these scholarships to be easier to get. And sometimes I also tell people, have some kinds of budgets in case the scholarships don't work, if you really want to go out of the country. Because even when the scholarships come, there are certain things you will pay for yourself. Also, sometimes, even with the scholarship, you have to pay some money yourself first before you start benefiting from that. If you are doing research, maybe masters by research or a PhD, and you are in what is called the STEM related courses. The STEM means science, technology, engineering, mathematics. If your field of study is within this STEM and you are doing something in research, there are countries that have hundreds of thousands of scholarships for you, and that's the truth. But what have been your scores? They want to see good scores, educational scores, external test. So some people will say, I have a distinction or I have a first class, and then they will ask, why can't I get scholarship? Usually there is a score sheet, and in that they will factor in your WAEC, they factor in other things, they factor in your first degree. That is why transcript is very important, and that is something we will also talk about getting your transcripts from the institution. And I'll give you an example. If you have studied economics in UI, there are different courses you will do. If you want to study international finance as masters, maybe in the US, they have some courses that you must have done, either in your bachelor's or your master's degree, that will tally with their international finance. So when they pick your transcripts, they are not looking at all the courses you have done to grade your transcript. They are not looking at the fact that you have done 15 courses to arrive at your GPA. No. They will look at the courses that align with that master's in international finance. Maybe they are just 6 out of all the things you did. And that may be what they will use. And that may sometimes bring down the value of the GPA. Because they are probably combination of courses where in your own first degree you did score too high. You understand what I'm trying to say? So that is why transcript is important. And that is why when some people tell me to do assessment for them with regards to doing some specific courses, I will always ask for the transcript, because that will help me to have an idea of how they will be placed when they are being scored, for scholarship. So that is important. Then, like your WAEC, what did you score? That's also important. If you have academic gap, what have you been doing in between? Have you been working? That can be a point for you. If you are working, are you working in a related field? That can be a point for you. If you are not working in a related field, are you working in an environment where you are able to get transferable skills that will be useful for this course you want to do. That is also a plus for you. So there are different things they actually put together before they actually determine whether you can get the scholarship or not. And that is why I said that, scholarships are available, but it doesn't mean that it is automatic and that it is for everyone. You have to do the work. And sometimes starting early is important so that you can start improving on yourself. For instance, if you are in your 200 level and you are aiming at a master's degree abroad, this is something you can start working on right now so that you can get to that level where the scholarship will easily fall, into your laps. And I said emerging economies. Sometimes some countries used to have scholarships for students from some developing nations. That's what I mean by emerging economies. And so those are also scholarships that one can check. But you see, the issue is this. If they are targeting a scholarship at students from developing nations, you can imagine how many developing nations we have. And if they have only 10 scholarships, you can imagine how the competition will be. And that is why it is not automatic and it may not be for everyone. So you need to do a lot of work to get to that level. And the kind of study you also do sometimes can help. Like there was a time that gender and women studies was really, and you have some bodies who are ready to sponsor people to do research in that area. And such people can get funded. So sometimes you also need to understand what is the in thing. What are the things that can get sponsored right now in line with your field? And then you can now choose to do.
I can't hear you again, ma. Your voice is muted, I guess.
Sorry, it's not muted. I can hear clearly from my end.
Yeah, I didn't mute because I had to go to the setting to get things sorted.
No, we're hearing your voice.
Oh, okay, all right. Maybe just some people can't hear. Okay, thank you. So, in other words, you may look at some sensitive topics that are ongoing. I know that immigration issues right now is something, but I think that is also getting overflooded because I have an immigration expert who tells me that is getting too flooded right now. So it may not be a way to go. But there are always issues, raining at a particular time that will attract scholarship. There was a time it was sustainable energy. I know that this time they are talking a lot about grain, which is part of sustainability. I know that sometimes some of those two also get funded. So you can see that a lot of research is needed for you to be able to get to this level. And of course, it is one thing to identify such areas. It is another thing for you to be able to package your research statement, to make yourself stand out in a way that even a faculty can decide to sponsor you. Because sometimes some faculties have grants. They have research grants that they can use to fund students. And I have seen that done many times. But it's a lot of work. Now that we know that scholarships are available, but we need a lot of work. For some countries, for instance, like the US, some tests actually help you to be able to get scholarship as well. And we'll talk about that. Now let's look at, in terms of countries, in terms of how friendly they are scholarship-wise. And when I say this, I'm not referring to the kind of scholarship I was talking about earlier that can come from external partners, because most of those ones I said earlier come from external partners, like maybe UNICEF, WHO, USAID, and all that. And of course, for a long time, the United States was doing a lot of that. But there are institutional scholarships available as well. And that was why when I said some faculty may have research grants that they can use to sponsor students. And I've seen that done many times. That is institutional. But some universities also they are prone to giving scholarships depending on the countries they have. Canada at undergraduate level may not be scholarship friendly. At master's level may not be scholarship friendly unless you are you are within some of those things I mentioned earlier, like STEM, like something that is really in demand and all that. But at PhD level, Canada can be scholarship friendly. Australia, the same thing. European Union countries, they are scholarship friendly. I have a lot of students in European Union countries, so I know what I'm talking about because they have this Erasmus network, and it's a big pool of funds, and you can get scholarship for different things through the Erasmus network. And then for the UK, sometimes automatic but very small. Maybe your school fee is about £20,000. They can choose to give you £2,000. You still have to look for £18,000 and all that. But I've seen someone that I supported with the personal statement that got up to £10,000 scholarship, and she is not really in STEM, and that is the highest I have seen. But she still had to pay, I think, about £7,000, after that £10,000. But £10,000 is the highest I've seen. I have gotten UK scholarship before. But 50%, so UK most of the time would hardly do 100% unless you are doing something in those special needs area that I said, or if you are laboratory based, and especially at PhD level. For those aspects, UK can be. Otherwise, I used to say that UK is the least scholarship friendly country that I know, and I'm saying that from experience. US used to be the greatest scholarship friendly country, but right now the landscape is a bit shaky, especially if you write their either SAT, GRE or GMAT, IELTS or TOEFL. I've seen people who have had 100% scholarship at first degree level. I've seen people who have had 100% scholarship at master's level. As a matter of fact, 2 of them just resumed in August 2024. And most that I know doing PhD have been fully funded with monthly stipend. The US used to be that magnanimous, that generous. But now, they are still available. But the competition is more now because the government is trying as much as possible to withdraw the kind of grants they give to institutions to make this possible. So some institutions have to now rely on what they can generate themselves to be able to sponsor people. So you can imagine what that means. That means that without the grant, if they were doing 50 before, they probably can only do 20 now. And if they are going to do 20 now, that means it will be more competitive than ever. So that is the landscape right now in terms of these countries and their scholarships. One other thing you want to consider is the post-study option. This is very important as well. And if you refer to what I said earlier about why do you really want international education, is it study, is it study JAPA, or is it for professional development? This is where this becomes very important. If you are doing study for the sake of study, you want to go back home or go to any other country, you may not bother about this. If you are doing it for self-development or professional development, you may not bother about this because your primary goal is actually not to stay in that country. But if it is your intention to use it as a means to relocate, then you need to know what post-study options are available for each of these countries. That is very important. For instance, after my graduation, how many months do I have? How many years do I have that I can stay legally in the country, to be able to work or look for work? That is important because you want to know before you go for that. Then what is the pathway to permanent residency after I have this opportunity, maybe to stay for 2 years or for 3 years or for 8 months after my study? If I'm able to get a job, will I be able to get a PR? That's the permanent residency. How long after will I be able to get the permanent residency? What are the requirements? Some also want to know. They do ask us all these questions, and that is part of the services that we provide. And after permanent residency, some want to now know, so how does it translate to citizenship? Because some countries won't give you citizenship if you have another citizenship. So you can see why some of these things some people want to know, so that it can help them to plan themselves and help them to know whether it is worth investing the amount they would be investing in such an initiative or a project. If some EU countries won't allow you to have dual citizenship, for instance. I know someone who denounced Nigerian citizenship to get a Swiss citizenship. That's Switzerland. So some of these countries won't allow you. So you now have to come to a point where you say, I don't want my country citizenship again, so I take the implication is just that if you want to go to Nigeria, you collect visa, things like that. So this is why some people want to know. Some countries allow dual citizenship. UK allows, US allows, Canada allows, some Australia, some allow. But remember, some of these things change. So one has to be have the updated information about that at any point in time, since those things change. But some people want to know this before they decide on whether it is worth it or not for them. I don't know if some people want to ask questions before I go further. In case you want to talk, or Esther, do you think I should go ahead? Can you tell me?
Yes, ma'am. They can drop the question. If you have questions, you can drop it in the chat box, so that
All right.
you just read through.
All right. Thank you very much. So now, in terms of post-study options, I've said a lot about the fact that some countries like the UK, for instance, if you have done a master's, they'll give you 2 years. If you have done a PhD, they'll give you 3 years. But now that is being debated. It's actually on the table of the Migration Advisory Committee right now, where they are trying to decide whether to still make the 2 years, or make it 1.5 years, then do something about the 3 years and all that. But for the UK, as at now, if you do masters, you get 2 years post-study to look for work. And within the 2 years, you can do any kind of work. You can work for 3 employers if you want. What is important is that you use it to test the UK work market. After the 2 years, you are expected to now look for what they call the skilled worker visa, which will give you 3, 5 years, 2 years. Some employers will start with 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and all that. But once you scale through the transition from the graduate route to the skilled worker visa, then you are allowed to stay in the country for 5 years of continuous skilled worker visa. You can switch employer in between. That's another matter. But after the 5 years, you can now apply for what is called indefinite leave to remain, which will lead to citizenship. That's the UK. And then you can also explore other visas, maybe like the startup, which is for like those who like to set up businesses, or you can do the global talent route, which involves a lot of things. But that's a matter for those who probably want to find out more about that later. For Canada and Australia, the postgraduate work permit depends on the number of years of your study. It can be from 8 months, it can be up to 3 or 4 or 5 years. For those who do PhD, for instance, in Australia, you can even have up to 6 years post-study to look for work. Remember that PhD is always seen as those who are contributing to the body of knowledge, so they are always respected in many contexts. And after you get the postgraduate work permit, you can now get a proper work permit if you have an employer, and the employer is the one who gives you the documents to be able to do the work permit. And once you have that, then for Canada and Australia, I think the pathway to the permanent residency is as at today. No. Okay. It's supposed to be faster than the UK. That's the truth. Because sometimes they count your years of study as part of your years for permanent residency. UK doesn't. Any number of years you spend on your study, as far as the United Kingdom is concerned, is not part of your 5 years to ILR. But for Canada, that's why you can see someone who has finished masters and in 2 years has a permanent residency, because they have counted the number of years, as part of it. I have some students in the European Union countries now who are already qualified for the permanent residency because they spent all their first degree there 4 years. So by the 5th year, they can apply for permanent residency, because some countries like that also count that as part of the years of that 5 years that you have to spend to be able to get their permanent residency or their citizenship. So some of these things are important things you also want to consider. And I've just said about the post-study options here that it varies. For the European Union countries, some people really don't mind the European Union countries because you have access to like 29 countries without visa. And I was telling someone, I was in one of the European Union countries last month, and I was talking to some of my students there about, oh, you are finished now, so do you want to go for your masters in Canada, in the US? Some of them said no, they want to stay in their European Union countries. Why? Because in the 4 years of their study, they've been to different European Union countries. They don't need visa because it's a Schengen visa. So they've been to France, they've been to Switzerland, they've been to Germany, they've been to Italy, they've been to Sweden, they've been to Denmark, they've been to... And because they can work in any of those countries, and that is the truth, because once you get there, you get the residence permit that qualifies you to be able to work in any of those countries. So some of them are beginning to fall in love with the European Union countries. The only thing, as I said earlier, is they may keep renewing the permanent residency, because if you come to the stage where you get their citizenship, you need to renounce, your country of birth. So it's a decision, it's a personal thing. Some will say, what if they do? What if they renounce it? So like I told you, I have someone who has renounced already and has a Switzerland passport right now. So people do that. And for the USA, it's another level right now. You need to go through your F1 visa status, change, get a green card, which is the same as a permanent residency. And then after 5 years, you can, of correct use of that green card, of that permanent residency, you can get the citizenship. But if it is by which, and in terms of admission processing cost, some say when you ask them, when they want to do application, you ask them to pay, especially if it is the UK. Most UK schools don't collect application fee. Most United Kingdom schools don't collect application fees. Some agents charge when you are applying to the UK, and I'll tell you the reason. I have been there before. Hundreds of people will ask you, we want to do admission, we want to do this. You go through all the routes. Imagine all the things I've told you about. I have to search for the right course, I have to search for the right school, because not all schools have the same courses. And there are different parts of the United Kingdom. You have the Wales, you have Scotland, you have England, you have Northern Ireland. Some of them, they have their different rules. You've already tried to put together all this for a student, done the research, provided information about the visa application requirement, done everything free of charge for hundreds of people who have made inquiries. And at the end of the day, they now go and use another agent to get in. So to the person who has done all the work, it's like a waste of time, a waste of effort. And that is why some agents actually charge, as far as the United Kingdom is concerned. I did it for people before who didn't use it, and I told myself I would not do it again. Because I felt like it was because they didn't pay. That's why they didn't do anything about it. And you can imagine when later you now hear that, maybe they now came in through another agent. who gets that? Who gets the commission is that agent. You that you have done all the wahala, nothing for you. So that's why most agents you see actually charge even for the United Kingdom, because they don't want to work for nothing. Australia, we charge. Most we charge. Some have application waivers which you have to apply for, but it is not automatic. European Union countries will definitely charge. In fact, some have increased their application fee. Some collect as high as €150 application fee. So when the agent asks you to pay, it is because they are going to pay that fee. So if you apply to 3 schools, you will have to pay separate application fees to the schools. And for some people, it is advisable you do more than one school, especially when you have studied their credentials and you see that I'm just doing a 50-50 here. This is a by chance thing. This is a by chance thing. This is a by chance thing. Then you want to try like 3 different schools. It's a lot of money. So that is why they charge. And remember that for most of this Western world, when it comes to that final decision, the agent is not the one who has the authority to say, you must take this person. You know, that's something we are used to probably in Nigeria, where we say, this is my person, take, this is my person. In these countries, it's not like that. As a matter of fact, sometimes we sign agreements where we let them know that what we will do is to make sure that as much as possible, we help this person to package their application and make them highly eligible. But we cannot influence their decision. I have signed an agreement like that with countries in the EU before, so I know what I'm talking about. Canada, we will pay application fee for each school. That's the truth. And the USA, you will pay. There are application waivers, but not all schools will open that. They may open it for a short period, you know, maybe just to attract people to come in and all that. But I always tell people something they don't know. Sometimes where you have application waiver free, the competition will be more, because there will be a lot of people, a pool of people, because it's free. And that means that, and why they are doing it is that they want as wide as possible in terms of talent, qualifications, scores. Then it will help them to be more competitive in their selection. And that's what most people don't know. So that's why I don't necessarily target schools with application waivers. And that's the truth. And when you are processing in terms of cost, UK is the cheapest in terms of application cost. UK is the cheapest. For the rest of the countries, it depends. Canada, some schools may ask for less, some may ask for more. The same thing with the USA. Some may ask for $50, some may ask for $100, some may ask for $150. So it actually depends on the program, the school, you know, and all that. But UK is actually the cheapest. And it is the cheapest because, like I said, the agents won't have to pay an application fee to the school. But they are collecting their own money for service charge, and then they will guide you through their visa application process, which is very, very important and it's worth paying for. I must tell you that. And in terms of study cost, EU countries are where right now you can get affordable tuition, and especially if you have, you know, very competitive grades. EU is still the cheapest. Some EU countries till today still collect about €3,000 for 1 year. There's no school you want to go to in the United Kingdom, even if you want to go and study English for 6 months, that you will pay €3,000. It's not possible. And there's no school you want to go to in Canada that you will pay €3,000 right now. So EU is still the cheapest. But Canada used to be cheaper than the UK, but right now Canada too has jacked up. But because their currency is the smallest when it comes to the exchange rate market, so that is why Canada is still more doable for some people. Because if you look at the calibration of the currencies, pounds, dollars, Canadian dollars, euro, Canada is still the smallest. And that's why when you convert it to Naira, for instance, for those in Nigeria, then it still looks cheaper. You understand? So maybe Canada, Australia, UK, USA is the most expensive. And that is why the best way to get into the US is through scholarship, research assistantship, tutorial assistantship, graduate assistantship, and things like that. There are things that make the US more affordable for most people. Otherwise, it's actually the most expensive. So some of the documents you need to start getting ready: the valid passport. It must have at least 6 months beyond your planned return date. Academic certificate and transcript right from your WAEC, your bachelor's degree, your transcript for bachelor's degree. If you are doing a PhD, your master's certificate and your transcript for master's degree. Transcripts are important. I've told us the reason earlier, because sometimes they select some of the courses to see if they align with theirs before they now know whether to give you this. Or they may say, like I have someone who applied for a PhD, but they said, no, come in with masters. Full tuition waived, to be honest with you, full tuition waived for the masters, because it's lacking some courses. Come in with the masters, take the courses, then in between the masters you can move to the PhD. That happens in the US, it is possible. So, and then your NECO, your WAEC, if you have gone to the Polytechnic, your ND and HND certificate and transcript. But remember, if you go to the European Union country, for instance, with your HND, not OND, even HND, the person will have to start from 100 level in European Union countries because they don't recognize it. But you can use your Polytechnic credentials to get into institutions in UK, in Canada, and in the US. So those are matters for another day. And you can see why I said that it is not a one cap fits all. Everybody still now needs to look at their individual circumstances, and then you can now use that to say this is what will be better for you, and all that. Then it's always good to have letters of recommendation ready. Have 2 or 3 people that can give you recommendation, and it's always good when they have institutional email addresses or workplace email addresses, not gmail.com. Some don't take that. They like it when it has come from clinical, maybe Rsmartedge.com. Then they know that it is organizational or institutional, maybe clinical.unilag.edu, that kind of thing. They like such. So you can start identifying who can do that for you. Most schools in the US will ask for 3. In the UK, 1 can be okay, but sometimes they ask for 2. Especially if you have a wide academic gap, then they probably want an academic and they want a workplace or professional referee. So these are, you see, why I said that these are things that will be packaged for each person depending on what your circumstances. And that is why we usually ask for your CV to see where you are in order to be able to identify if there are gaps in your CV. For some people, you may need to get language proficiency results. For instance, in the UK, if your WAEC English has been something you did like over 10 years ago, they may say they will not take that English. You have to write IELTS. It happens to someone right now. As a matter of fact, the person should have written IELTS today, because that was what they asked for. Some schools will say it doesn't matter, but some will ask. And especially the older the WAEC or the NECO or the GCE, the more they will ask. Even though they know you have studied in English, some will still ask. Some will take letters of proficiency in English language, which you collect from your institution to say that you have studied in English. But most of them right now, they are beginning to not want that. And so you need to know what each school would want you to have. Then personal statement, this is something you have to write. Sometimes we write that, or we help you, we support you to write that, so that we make it as close to what the school wants as possible. And then financial document, very important, because UK, for instance, we ask you to pay a lot of money before you can do your visa application fee. Right now, the average I have seen is about £5,000, which today is like 11 million naira before you can even do visa application. That is the level of most UK schools today. Canada may ask you to just pay 1.5 million or 2 million, and you are ready to go for your visa application. The US, most schools we ask for like $500. Some, well, the last that I paid for someone was just $500, to be honest, and you can do your visa application. But there is a caveat to the US rule. You need an I-20 to go for your visa application. So because of that, they will ask you to provide financial documents to show that you have the money to fund the study. So you have to supply that to the school. And when you give that to the school, then they process that. And without the I-20, you cannot pay your service fee and you cannot do this application. So that's the way the US works. For Canada, it is more of the bank statement you need for your visa application because the school most times won't even ask. They just want you to pay the initial fee, which I said maybe even 1.5 million naira. But then you need a lot to be able to stay with the visa financial requirements. So you can see that they are all different. You know, it depends on which country and all that. So other things we ask for, like birth and marriage certificate, especially if it's a woman, whose name would have changed, and then your CV, as I said. And sometimes if you have any other certificates in between, like some would have done some certificate, have acquired certificates, we ask you to also try to bring all that. So we try to see how we can use that in your personal statement, just to make you look more, you know, like the serious students that you are supposed to be. And in terms of visa application requirements, international passport, admission letter, if it's UK, you need a CAS. If it's EU, you need a mediation code. If it's USA, you need an I-20, like I said. But for you to be able to do some of those, the proof of fund is important, your academic document is important, and for the UK, you will have to pay health surcharge. For the US, you don't pay health insurance before you go in. For Canada, you don't pay health insurance before you go in. Sometimes the school have provisions for that for their students, you know. But for the UK, you have to pay that, and you have to pay for each year of the student. So these are some of the financial requirements, you know, that you have to take into cognizance when planning to do your visa application. Because without making all this payments, especially in the UK, paying the health surcharge, you can't even go to visa. In terms of ease of application process, UK visa, no interviews, but I heard that now they've started calling people randomly for interviews if they are doing research. I think they just want to interact with some, they want to be sure that it's research they want to do. And the reason is because research is the only thing that can allow someone to bring dependence to the UK right now. And they've seen a lot of people are rushing into it, so sometimes they call people. Otherwise, UK no interview. So UK used to be the one with the least visa wahala. They want you pay money, pay the 12 million naira deposit, pay the 14 million naira deposit, pay the 17 million naira deposit, pay the health surcharge fee, pay the visa fee. I can tell you your visa is 98% sure. That's the UK, and that's the truth. Even so now, to be honest with you. And that is why you see that is a place where many people actually go who want to japa, because they know that it is a place where their visa application chances are very high once you make all those payments. So that's the UK for you. EU, we do interview. Most countries in the EU now, we do interview, but most of the time it's like an interaction interview to get to know you. Of course, then you have some questions related to your district. But these are some of the things we prepare students for. All my students in the EU went through interviews, but you just have to prepare them, you know, for such interviews. But some UK schools, we do interviews with you, not the embassy. So I need to say that. In the EU, most of the schools may do interviews and at the same time still do the visa. Some won't do the school interview, but you do the visa interview. And for Australia, you do interview. For Canada, no interview as well. Well, you know, there's a relationship between Canada and the United Kingdom. Where the king of the United Kingdom is actually like their president in Canada. So they have a lot in common. They have a lot in common. So they also don't do interviews for visa application. But you need to package it. Wherever they don't do interview for visa application, then you must have sound financial package, and your application must be filled and well packaged. So that, because they won't call you to start asking you questions. It's all those submitted documents that will be speaking for you. So that is why agents also charge, because they have to make sure that all those things are done as best as they can. They don't have the power over yes or no on the visa, but any agent should desire to have positive outcomes most of the time. And then for the USA, of course, it is interview. So that's why they don't. You can even go to the US. They will not even look at your financial embassy. They will not even look at your financial document. My first appearance at the US, they never looked at my financial document. It was not to study anyway. It was to visit. But even for those who go for study, sometimes they don't even ask. because they know Nigerians do all kinds of things anyway, but then they are more of psychologists. When I have a cousin who used to work in the American embassy, and he will tell you that they are trained. They can ask you one question, they can ask you what is photosynthesis. If you say you want to go and read biology, something you would have probably forgotten. And that may be what they just say, no, they are not clinical people, things like that. So, but all these things we try to prepare students as much as possible for such interviews where they have to be there. And there are success stories. So don't feel that it is all not impossible. So visa approval chances, as I've said, UK is the best. EU now is restricted a lot in Nigeria because some EU countries have moved their study visa application centers from Nigeria to some other countries. Some of my own students who entered the EU last did go from Nigeria. Some went from South Africa, some went from Malaysia, some went from Singapore, but they are there now. And so that is what has limited the EU from Nigeria. But that means spending more money, as you will agree with me. Because if I have to go to Malaysia or Singapore first, the one that went to Singapore told me he spent 5 million naira before getting to country of study. Then you need to find out how many hours can you work, while you are studying. Australia 40 hours, Canada 40 hours. They are debating reducing it to 30 hours. EU country 40 hours, UK is 20 hours, and US is 20 hours. But must be in the university where you are studying. That's the US. Therefore, dependents, the rules are changing right now for UK, for EU. So that is something we talk about, when we need specific cases. But all these things are not like automatic again. Even in Canada, for some studies in Canada now you can't go with family. For some you can go with family. So we need to look at the context to know if that is possible or not. Then whether Nigerians are very resilient, most Africans, we are very resilient. So I've seen that whether the weather is like this in UK or wherever, we survive. Because if there's a country here called Alaska where they said it's very, very good, I've never been there. I mean in the US, but then Nigerians are living there. So like I always tell people, Nigerians are very, very resilient. So that is not a but I know some people because of health reasons, and that's why I put this there, where they feel like they can't go to some countries. If you want to avoid very cold countries, you want to avoid Canada, you want to avoid Alaska in the US, Texas is fine, Georgia is fine. Some states in the US are fine as well. But then that is what also determines which school do we look for. Like I said, I have a client who has health issues. So already we are looking for, okay, which states in the US are we looking at? Which states in the EU are we looking at? Lithuania is very cold. Russia is very cold. Some countries like Portugal is not as cold. Spain is not as cold. So we now begin to look at, okay, so let's look for schools in this country. So there is so much to it, to be honest, especially where there are health concerns to be addressed. And now, fix your academic gap. For those who have not been in school for a long time but you want to proceed, look at when last have you been in school? Where are you now? How many years? What have you been doing? We have to fix that gap because they don't like seeing any gap between your academic and what you want to do. And be prepared for school interviews. We do that. We support you to prepare for school interviews, as I said. Be financially prepared. And so to fund your study, there are different things, scholarships and grants, work opportunities. There are student loans. I need to tell you that. There are student loans. US, Canada, some universities in the UK, there are student loans. But they are not automatic. But we can guide you through if that is what you want. And we can guide you through as much as possible to be able to apply for such student loans. But as I said, it is not automatic, but they are possible, and I need to get you that. So that can be part of your funding option, for your study abroad experience. But there are a lot of contexts that have to be taken care of for us to get to that point. Thank you for staying with me today. I want to apologize about the issues we had when we got started. And I think that is the world of technology. When sometimes you think you are well prepared and something just happens. But I have worked in the international environment And something that I learned, I always tell my husband and my children this, is that most of those people, they know some of those things can happen, but they see it as part of life. You know, sometimes you prepare so well and things just go wrong, but then you explain it and life still moves on. In other words, I'm just trying to link it back to us that wherever we may be today, there might have been mistakes, there might have been a lot of twists and turns. You might have planned well and certain things are appearing to be like barriers or challenges. Please just see them as part of the package that have built your resilience and can help you to move into this arena you want to move into. To be honest with you. Now I tell people, even if they say they have made mistakes, no. We are learning that even from mistakes, there are skills you get that you can use to support yourself for interviews. Believe me. So now, nothing is a waste, please. Nothing is a waste. Just try to, as much as possible, get prepared and be determined. Africans, we have that advantage of being highly resilient, and that is something that really works a lot well when you get to the Western world. And you will find. That's why you see at home they say some students are having this. When they come out, they say they're having first class, they're having distinction, because they have learnt through the hardest of circumstances. So they have been made tough. And that is who we are. So just know that this is something you can get started with. You may need specific contests to be discussed and something prescribed for you. Please feel free to do that. And know that at the back of your mind, as I said, there is no free international education right now. It will still cost you something, either with the school, either with moving, either with the visa application process. At some point, you need, this to be able to leverage and move into that thing that you really want to do. So thank you once again for staying this long. I will look into the questions. I'm sure Esther will probably read them to me, and I will answer as much as I can. But you can also send email to that email address on the screen, and we'll get back to you. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Ma.
Thank you.
So this was a loaded session. I've learned so much, and there are many things I did not know that you broke down into tiny bits. And I believe that this is just the beginning for many of us that are really eager to, explore the opportunities available. So we have a few questions here. I will just read. And if you've got other questions, please drop them in the chat. If you'd like to speak as well, you can raise your hand so that we'll mute your mic and you go ahead to speak as well. If you have a question or feedback, anything that is not clear from what has been said so far. So the first question from Oluwatosin Balogun says that what about other means to relocate, like the work visa directly from Nigeria here? So is that something that can be explored aside studying or aside studies?
Okay, thank you very much. Work visas are doable, but there's a caveat to it. There's no work visa application you want to do without you having, no, let me correct myself. There are work pathways, but you may need employment in that country. And then they give you some documents. For instance, in Canada, they give you like the LMIA, which you can now use to apply for the work visa. But it means that there is an employer in Canada who is ready to give you work, and that employer is ready to submit his documents to give you that work. That is possible. But the issue is how many people are able to get that employment right from Nigeria without someone in Canada influencing it. So that is where the twist comes in. In the US, it's the same thing. That is why you have what they call H-1B visa in the US. With the H-1B, you can be in your country and you can apply and you will get someone to sponsor you. But then you need that job first. To do that, it's usually very competitive. And unfortunately, sometimes in Nigeria, we are not really prepared for such things. And I will tell you why. Because sometimes the system has made us such that we are not even really developing ourselves. I must be frank. I'm a career practitioner. I know what I'm talking about. I know what I see on a daily basis. I know what I hear. A student told me last week that they asked them to pay for projects. I'm just giving an example. And I said, why are you paying for projects? Is it to type or to bind? They said they must pay it. And if they don't pay it, they may not pass the project. And I remember someone who had told me before, can you tell me the topic of your project? She said she can't remember because then it was done for them. You can imagine. So when we now want employment, you can see where all these things are wrong from home. Now, if I have a child that they say must pay for project, if you don't pay, you will not pass. Will you not, as a parent, want to look for money to pay so that your child will pass? Because you don't want to waste your money in that university. And then the child comes out and has passed. But the child knows less than 50% of what he or she has gone to do in the university. And then here you want to meet a US employer who wants to interview you for a job because their interview process is completely different. I have gone through it, so I know. I've done interviews in the US, I've done in Canada, I've done in UK, I've done in South Africa. So I know what I'm talking about. It's not like what we do back home in Nigeria. And the child and the person can't defend anything. How do you get that kind of employment? And these are the kinds of employment that will be free for you because they won't collect money from you because you have distinguished yourself. You have shown that you know what you are doing. You have shown that you have the skills, you have the knowledge, you have the certificate. It's free. It's difficult. So what most people do is to pay people in those countries to help them lobby, maybe with an employer and all that, so that they can give them this. And that is why people spend a lot of money. And of course, in the process, a lot of people have also lost a lot of money because sometimes you pay all that money and not incomes. Now, there is an aspect where you don't have to pay money to get into a country for work. For the UK, you have the global talent. For Canada, you have the provincial nominee, and they also have a version of the global talent. I've forgotten the name it is called now, I may remember. For Australia, they have the highly skilled. For the US, they have the EB, the NIW, that's the National Interest Waiver, which tells the government, I'm a potential. I have all the skills, I have the certification, I have the knowledge, I'm someone who has, I have evidence to show that I'm a talent. And then they give you this visa to come into their country, and you don't have to get a job to come into their country. If you do the UK Global Talent, you don't need an employer. Once you are approved, but you need to convince the approval body before you can be approved. And you need evidences to convince that body that I have this, I have that. I can create a checklist for who wants to do that, and you can build on that. Do the approval process, you will pay for the approval, definitely. Even in the US, you will pay for the approval. For all of them, you will pay for the approval. But it won't be like when you are paying someone to help you arrange a job from the country. And when you now pay them and you provide all the evidences they need, then if they approve you, you will now use that approval to apply for the visa. You can get 5 years visa, which gives you automatic ILR in the US and the UK after the 5 years of global talent. In the US, you can do the same and get 5 years and you can apply for citizenship. In Canada, it's the same thing. In Australia, it's the same thing. So in other words, even in the EU right now, it is happening. There are work opportunities, but I've told you the two different ways to do it. It's either you are paying someone a whole lot of money to do it, but remember that money, put it into a 50-50 box. It can go, it may not go, but you can get into that country. But there is that pathway where you don't have to pay all these huge amounts of money, and you can get in and then look for work. And when you have those kinds of visas, you are not bound to an employer. You can work for any employer you want. You are not bound to, like in the US, for instance, you are not bound to any state. You can go to any state you want. You can get any, you can even move to Texas today and get a job in Georgia, then you move to Georgia, or you go to Boston, or you go to New York and all that. So you are not, and that is the beauty of that kind of visa. But I tell you, it is, it takes a lot to do that. But it is not impossible, because if you start early, you can be guided through the process as well. But the UK is the fastest. The global talent is the fastest. It's faster than the US version of that. The US one can take you like 2 years, 3 years. But the UK one, if you get prepared, maybe like in a year, in 1.5 years, you may get that approval and you're in the UK. So that's why the UK is the fastest. But if you are ready with all the evidences for the UK right now, in 6 months, you may be in the UK. So that's why, you remember I said, just like the visa application process, that the UK appears to be, a more direct route. It's just money. That's it.
Oh, thank you very
So,
much, Ma. I believe that really answers the question in detail. So I'm going to read the next question that we have. Again, if you have questions, please, now is the time to drop them while we round up this session. So the next question says from Divine is asking, what's the budget for studying masters in the UK without scholarship?
okay, thank you, Divine. For the UK, as I said, is one of the most expensive. Um, right now, the average tuition fee for masters that I'm familiar with, average, I would say is about £14,000, which today is more than 29 million naira. I've seen 20 something, and I've seen about £12,000. But where the school fee is less, know that there will be more competition. So remember that thing I said about, if you have a free application and all that, there will be more competition. So let's say the average will be about £14,000. And for the tuition deposit that you have to pay before you go for your visa application, the average, as I said, is about £5,000. I've seen £8,000, I've seen 6,000, but the average right now I can say is about £5,000, which is maybe close to 11 million naira today. That's for the UK.
All right, thank
And that
you.
is applied the head surcharge. The head
Mm-hmm.
surcharge is £1,035 per year, but it will be more because they will deduct that money in dollars. So it ends up being really about £1,100, for 1 year. So if your course is 2 years, you have to pay 2 years. So that will be times two of that 1,000 plus pound. Then you now have your visa fee. So
Okay, so I believe that gives us an idea of what to prepare for. So another question is, what about aspiring undergraduates? Is the process smooth? I think that's the last question.
okay. Now for aspiring undergraduates, the UK will be a big ball game for them. Big ball game for two reasons. One, if you are 18 years, you can apply directly to the UK for a first degree. If you are not, you will not be able to. You have to go through what they call the international year one. And for that international year one, the last one I did cost about £16,000 for that international year one. And they will want you to pay, they may want you to pay all that money at once before you go for the visa application. Then when you are finished international year one, you will now do 3 years. And it's a lot of money. So undergrad, at this point, I will suggest you can consider the European Union country, you can consider US, you can consider Canada. Canada, if you have a strong financial backbone, you can try Canada. And if your sponsor has things to evidence the source of that fund, you can do Canada. That's the truth. For US, if you are able to try to write SAT, try to do some of those things. US is more expensive, as I said, but just because I know that if you have SAT and some of those things, you may be eligible for a high level of scholarship, which we may not get up to that in Canada. And for the EU, because it's the cheapest. But then, as I said, you may have to prepare to either look for countries that still have study visa application centers in Nigeria, so that you don't have to do the round of first of all going to South Africa or Egypt or Turkey or Malaysia, or you are prepared to also go through those countries. So everything is about budget. What is your budget? What is your parents' budget? That can help to now guide. But in terms of asking me the specific about that, it will be difficult because I have to know what course you want to do. Courses have different tuition fees attached to them, and courses have different requirements as well. Do you meet that requirement? And which country, for instance, has the cheapest in terms of that thing you want to do? So I think that's all I can say for now, to be honest with you. But I know that the UK route for undergraduate study is the most expensive right now. And because at that level, the UK is not scholarship friendly at all.
Okay, so I believe that maybe with a consultation, you'll be able to know exactly the school the person wants to go for, courses and the fund they have available. So that can help to narrow down the choices that will be most suitable. So another question here is, which country makes it smooth to live there and work after your study?
Okay, that's a good one. If you asked me this question a year ago, I would say Canada. A year ago, I would say Canada. But right now, to be honest with you, the international landscape is such that I can't really say this is where you can easily settle down. And the reason is because most of them are closing up. Um, so they are bringing in a lot of policies that are making it more difficult. UK right now just released some policies like 2 days back. I just sent the link to, so I'll send to you Esther in case you want to share with them. Everybody can have a look at that. Like the summary from my own immigration lawyer. And so you'll see what I'm talking about. It's getting tougher. I will still say that that's why you have to be strategic when going in. And you have to be really strategic because some courses will place you high. For instance, with Canada, in spite of all the twists, if you are doing something in education or health, you still have an upper hand. And that is why at undergraduate level, if you are studying education or health, as at my last understanding, you can even move in with your family and you can go as for your bachelor's degree. Because that is the area they feel that they need is age sensitive. You can be 50 years and still apply and they'll give you. If you do 50 years in UK and Canada, you will likely get UK, not Canada, because Canada is age sensitive. They have a lot of aged population, so they prefer the younger people to come in. So this is why you need to blend a lot of things together to decide it on works. But if for instance US is, so there are ways to actually get this an agent will do for you, and that is part of why they probably charge. If you're able to know that these are areas of such shortage and you're able to fit in your study program into that, believe me, before you even finish the study, you will have a job. And once you have a job, that's easy entry now. You know what I'm talking about. So that is why there is a lot to consider. And it's like when you need recipe to get something. And if the recipe, if you don't have the complete ingredients, you are not going to end up with the end products that you want. That's the way it is right now in international education as well. I need to be able to marry your qualifications and many things before I can even tell you, try this country, to be honest with you. But that being said, I think for those in the EU, if I compare my students in different countries right now, I think those in the EU are finding it less difficult, to be honest with you. Like I said, I was there last month. I interacted with a lot of them, and I can see they are settling down. So right now, maybe the EU. And like I said, I think it's because of the flexibility that comes with it, the fact that they can go to all those countries, and the fact that they can work in any of those countries without visas. Um, yeah. So for now, maybe they are still a bit settled. US right now, I'm sure you have been listening to news, you know what is going on with the President Trump and all that. And so right now, it's a 50-50 thing. But if you have the papers, believe me, it's fine. If you have a job, it's fine. Canada, I've told you, they too are coming up with a lot of things. Um, and then the UK, they just released something 3 days ago, as I said, which I'll share with Esther and she can share with everybody. So maybe the EU, Esther, for lack of not saying, in order not to not say something.
Okay, but I understand. I totally get it. So a lot of things are changing. So that's why
Yeah.
it's not like how it used to be before. So I think we're going to end with about two questions, right? So that we can just wrap up the session. So Benga here is asking, what about Asian countries? They're not really talked about. Is there a reason for that? And Daniel is also asking, what about Poland? So
Okay. Thank you very much. For Asian countries, I probably didn't say much about that because I don't know. Maybe it's only one student or applicant or someone who made a inquiry that I've had that has really talked about Asian countries. To be honest, I just feel like maybe it's a place most people don't consider, and I think it's one language barrier. That's why you see a lot of Asian people also coming to the UK, coming to the US to study, and we do have issues with language. When I was working in the UK with a university, we used to have that. And it is because for some of them, most of their education won't be done in English language. And so when you want to go there, I always ask, you can do some countries like Japan, like Korea, but I won't lie to you because most of them too are coming down, all these countries that I've said. But it is not impossible. But also remember that most of them staying after is the issue because not all of them are as open as some of these other, Western countries that we have mentioned a lot. So if you want to try an Asian country, you can let me know. We look at the specific ones and look at which country may be doable for you. But I've told you the reason why sometimes language barrier. Uh, So you have to look for the places where they teach in English. And if they teach in English, there will be limited courses that you can apply to look at the visa aspect of it. Like for instance, where are the centers in Nigeria where you can do that? What are the requirements? So those are the work we will now have to do for you. But I don't even have any. The person I have there is doing doctorate. Is a doctoral student in Malaysia, But that's at a different level because it's funded. And so let me know if that is your interest. We can look at what is doable for you. But apart from that person, I don't have any students in an Asian country. But it's possible, as I said. But that is in Abuja. Now, I'll tell you why. I've had Poland admissions, but why I stopped doing Poland until I see that there is an increased success rate. I couldn't find visa application dates for Poland students. For students who want to study in Poland. Tried. I couldn't find. Then I spoke with some of my, you know, co-agents. I don't like calling myself an agent, so I like to call it an education, that kind of thing. Because I know that in Nigeria, that's what they did. The way we have sort of bastardized it. And they said you have to pay to get the visa application dates. Okay, fine. Some students said no worries, they will do that. Some paid as much, they didn't get the visa. So that sort of like puts me off because so that's why. But Poland is doable. I can get Poland admission. You get Poland admission, right? But the issue is the visa. And what is the point if you get admission and you are not even getting the visa? So I really don't know what is wrong. So I told one of my friends that until I see that there is an improvement in the visa approval chances before, because I don't like to help people waste their money or help parents. I'm a parent too, so I know waste their money, you know. So before Poland too was okay, but in the past over 1 year now, it's been somehow, but it's doable. So if you are ready to go, why not? It's doable. Admission, we'll do it. Fine, we'll do the visa application once you are ready to get the dates. In which case, I may just even direct you to who can get it for you. You don't have to go through me because I don't know how they do it, and I don't have any share in whatever they do or anything. But if you can get the dates, we'll prepare you for the visa application submission and all that, and get the admission, and nothing is impossible. So Poland is fine. The constraint is just what I have said.
Thank you, ma. I think we'll take just one more. The other questions I'm seeing here, I believe that it requires that one maybe has a conversation with you because people are asking, okay, for this particular course, which country I studied this course, which country should I. So this is peculiar to
That's more specific now.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I
So
don't think you
it's
can
not
start
something
pinpointing on each person's
because
course.
for me to even give the answer, I will still need to go into an archive or do some research, and all that. So it's not something that I'll be able to say on this platform.
Okay, so the last question I'll just take this person is asking. He said that my wife studied health education and just finished NYSC. Which country should be our focus point in terms of relocating with family?
Mhm. If she wants to do masters by research and you have the means, you can do the UK. If she wants to explore Canada and you have the financial backbone, she can do Canada. And if she wants to do is if it's a PhD to the EU countries, you can do with family, but not at master's level as much as possible. And if it's the US, it's a 50-50 thing. But whichever one it may be right now, what we advise is that let the applicant go first, especially to Canada. Let the applicant go first, and then the family can go. But if you have a financial backbone and the evidence of the financial, of the source of funds and all that, you can also try with family. But for the UK, as I said, if she's doing by research, you can all go. But that is a lot because whatever else surcharge she has to pay, each of you will have to pay. But if it's Canada, like I told you, you don't have to pay that health surcharge. So that's why Canada appears to be a cheaper option. But in terms of the visa chances, UK.
All right, thank you very much, Ma. I think this other one, I don't want us to miss it. The person is asking, how can I use transcript student copy for master's application for European schools, or do they want official transcript? So the question is, can she or he use a student copy transcript, or will they require the official transcript from the school for application?
Okay, thank you very much. At the point of application, we can use student copy for any country at the point of application. Now, for US, for instance, when they are now ready to give you that thing, then they can now request for official copy. The US, for UK schools, most times when we submit the student copy, they don't even really ask for official copies unless there's a reason they want to do that. But for most UK schools, the student copy is fine. But for US, like I said, when they get to that point, they can ask for official copy. For Canada, we can submit the student copy. When they need the official, they will ask for it. And the reason it's good to get the student copy is because you can imagine if you want to try all these countries and you want to apply to 3 schools. That means that you have to pay for them to send to the 3 different schools. So that is why we try to use the student copy first, so that the school you now think, so even if you have 3 offers, maybe you have 2 from Canada, 1 from the US, 1 from the European Union country, if we now have that, and you now say, this is the one I want, then that is the one you will now request a transcript for. That's just the reason. But if you have the money to request directly for all the schools, it's not a problem, but we try to use student copies first. And for the European Union countries, it depends. For some countries, you can submit the student copy for all of them at the point of application, but at some point, they may now want you to get the official copy. So some we ask the school to send directly to them. Some we also provide their email addresses. That's their official email addresses to request from the school, and the school can send to the official email address rather than posting through DHL. I don't know whether you get what I mean. So it actually depends, but to start with, your student copy should be fine for most of the applications.
Okay, and that answers the question. Thank you so much, Ma. Again, for okay, Ma.
Someone raised his hand. Okay. No, it's fine.
Okay, so for any other questions that came in, I didn't bring them up because they are specific to certain courses. So I want to say that if you ask a question relative to a course and you want to find out which school, which country, I would employ that you book a consultation with us, so that you get to speak with Mrs. Ronke Adeshino and get to share your own background of, your educational background, and also anything that she needs, or you also need to provide to her, so that you get to understand better, get more informed information tailored to your own needs. So I would share the consultation link in the WhatsApp group, and we only get to take 1 consultation per week. So if this is something that is very important to you and you are ready to take the bull by the horn, so I'm going to ask you to book the consultation as quickly as you can, so that you get to speak. It's 30 minutes and it's totally free. You don't have to pay for now. So grab it now while it is still available. We can only take up to 4 people per month. So do well to take advantage of this opportunity. You won't get it for free anywhere else. So I don't know, Ma, if there's any other thing you want to say before I, just to wrap up the session.
Yeah, I want to say a big thank you to you for organizing everything. And I also want to say a big thank you to everyone who has taken time to be here, and to wish everybody the best, and to encourage everyone to be positive and know that you have all it takes to take the world and be on top of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ma. So once again, I would also share our social media links in the WhatsApp group for you to follow us for more updates, because we'll be sharing some more valuable information that would really help your study abroad journey. And we'll be also sharing more information via email. So if you registered, we would keep in touch with you via email. Also, if you need any foreign exam preparatory services, that's one of the things we help. If you want to travel abroad and you need us to assist with the logistics, or you are writing a thesis, you need us to help us edit, or you need proofreading services, visa advisory, or any form of consultancy, so you can reach out to our Smart Edge Educational Services, and you can send us an email. It's showing right on the screen now, or you can send us a DM on any of our social media pages. So we're going to call it a day here, and if we'll be having any other details, just stay tuned to our social media page. We'll be sharing some more important details with you. Do well to reach out to us if you need any of our services, and also if you need any form of consultation, right, regarding your study abroad journey. So thank you very much everyone for joining. One last thing I wanted to say, we would love to get feedback from you. How was this webinar? Did you get valuable information? Did it help provide clarity? So help just share it in the WhatsApp group. What was your experience with this? A lot of people missed out on this valuable session, and we want them to know one thing that you have taken away from this session. So help share your feedback in the WhatsApp group before you go to bed, before you go off. Please share your feedback. Let's know how this webinar has been helpful to you. Thank you very much once again. Until we meet again, this is our Rsmartedge Educational Services, and we'll say goodbye to everyone. Thank you so much for joining.
Bye.